Okay, in John 18, my big question is whether Jesus here, as John describes him, is the same or a different Jesus than the one described in the other Gospels. So we begin with verse 1. When he had finished praying, Jesus left with his disciples and crossed into the Kidron Valley. On the other side there was a garden, and he and his disciples went into it. So the question here is whether Jesus in the other Gospels uh, awoke in the same place as Judas betrayed him, or did he have to travel a little ways before he got to the location where Judas betrayed him? So in Matthew 26, you can see Jesus went with his disciples to Gethsemane, said, "Sit here while I go over and pray." He goes a little farther. He fell with his face to the ground. Then he returned to his disciples, found them sleeping. He went away a second time and prayed, "If it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." He came back, found them sleeping, and he went away once more and prayed a third time, saying the same thing. "Are you still sleeping and resting? Look, the hour has come and the Son of Man is delivered into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer." Okay. And while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, arrived. So in this situation, Jesus, Jesus of Bethlehem, does not cross the Kidron Valley to meet with Judas. Rather, while he's speaking to his sleeping disciples, Judas comes upon him. Okay, so we got one difference between John's Gospel and Matthew's Gospel is that in John, Jesus writes down Jesus' last prayer. In Matthew, Jesus' disciples are asleep during Jesus' last prayer. And another difference is that in John's Gospel, Jesus crosses the Kidron Valley before meeting Judas. And in Matthew, Jesus is awakening his disciples when Judas arrives. All right, verse 2. Now Judas, who betrayed him, knew the place because Judas often had met there with his disciples. So Judas came to the garden, guiding a detachment of soldiers and some officials from the chief priests and the Pharisees. They were carrying torches, lanterns, and weapons. Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out and asked them, "Who is it you want?" Okay, so in John's Gospel, Jesus spoke first. But what happened here is now the betrayer had arranged with a signal with them. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him." Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Greetings, Rabbi," which means greetings, teacher, and kissed him. And Jesus replied, "Do what you came for, friend." So in John, Jesus spoke first, but in Matthew, Judas goes to Jesus, calling him teacher, as he kisses him. The implication of this is, of course, that Jesus is teaching Jesus is teaching young men to kiss other men. So Jesus asks, "Who is it you want?" And they say, "Jesus of Nazareth." "I am he," Jesus said, and the traitor was standing there with them. When Jesus said, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. But in Matthew, the men stepped forward, seized Jesus, and arrested him. There's no drawing back. They drew back and fell to the ground. Again he asked them, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they said. Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. If you are looking for me, then let these men go." So in Matthew, the men stepped forward and arrested Jesus as soon as Judas kissed him. In John, the men drew back and had to be told twice, "I am he." And there was no mention of any kissing at all. This happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled. I have not lost one of those you gave me. And remember, earlier he said, I have not lost one of those you gave me, except for the one doomed to destruction, so that Scripture could be fulfilled. But this is referencing John 6:39. Okay, refers to, this is the will of him who sent me, that I shall lose none of all those he has given me, but raise them up at the last day. But I think the actual scripture that we are looking at is this one, John 17:12. While I was with them, I protected them and kept them safe by that name you gave me. None has been lost, except the one doomed to destruction, so that scripture would be fulfilled. And in the Greek, it says, none has been lost, if not the son of destruction. And what happens here in John's gospel is that he takes away Judas's actual act of betrayal. Judas does not kiss Jesus. He does not signal. He does not do the signal that reveals Jesus to anyone. Jesus himself says, I am he. He comes out, and Judas doesn't have to do the betrayal. Yes, it appears in the text that Judas the traitor was standing there with him, but Judas doesn't actually have any opportunity to actually betray Jesus, because Jesus just comes right out and says, I am he. So essentially in John's gospel, Judas is saved from committing an act of betrayal. John still accuses him of committing an act of betrayal, but he leaves out the evidence. So I'll just leave that in there, accusation without eyewitness. Then Simon Peter, who had a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. So Matthew has this same information except without the names. With that, one of Jesus' companions reached for his swords, drew it out, and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Okay, this is one of those places where I think it's important to believe in the sons of men, believe in the names of the sons of men, because John has got Simon Peter, which Jesus has called the rock on which his church is built, and has cut off the ear of Malchus, the servant of the high priest, but Malchus also means the reigning king of the Jews. I'm exaggerating a little bit, it just means king, but it's king in the Hebrew language, so Malchus would be the Hebrew language. So whereas in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, these names are hidden, and also Jesus immediately undoes the damage, in John the damage stays, and he cuts off the ear of Malchus, and he does not immediately repair it. Okay, then the next verse is, Jesus commanded Peter, put your sword away. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me? So in John, Jesus definitely wants to drink from the cup. But in Matthew, you'll see, my Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will. My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken unless I drink it, may your will be done. And he kept leaving them and went away once more and prayed the third time, saying the same thing. And so it's clear, this distinction, Jesus wants to drink from the cup in John. He does not want to drink from the cup in Matthew. I'm not sure exactly what the cup is, but I think it's, of course, this whole crucifixion thing that he has to go through with. Okay, then the detachment of soldiers with its commander and the Jewish officials arrested Jesus, and they bound him, and brought him first to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Now compare that to what happens in Matthew. Um, with Matthew, he very much de-escalates the situation. Um, Jesus tells his disciple, "Put your sword back in place, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Do you think I cannot call on my Father, and he will at once put at my disposal more than 12 legions of angels? But how then would Scripture be fulfilled that say it must happen this way?" In that hour, Jesus said to the crowd, "Am I leading a rebellion, that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I sat in the temple courts teaching, and you did not arrest me. But this has all taken place, that the writings of the prophets might be fulfilled." Then the disciples deserted him and fled. Um, there is not really any particular indication here that Jesus is bound. So in Matthew, there's not any particular um, mention that Jesus is bound. He might have been, but it's not. It doesn't say he was definitely bound. But he was brought to Caiaphas, the high priest. So in John, Jesus was bound and brought to Annas. In Matthew, Jesus gives a speech, is arrested, and brought to Caiaphas. So my impression is that it's possible that both Jesus of Bethlehem was there and of uh, Jesus Barabbas was there. They're both present. Jesus Barabbas says, "Are you going to stop me from drinking this cup? I want to drink the cup." And Jesus Barabbas was bound and brought to Annas. Both of them are from the Nazareth area, though, so they can both plainly say, "Hey, I'm Jesus of Nazareth." Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Nazareth is this little area here. Zooming out, where'd it go? Okay, still there at the edge of the map. There's the Sea of Galilee. Zoom out a little bit more. Zoom out a little bit more. Where's that other sea? There it is. I like to map everything from the Galilee to the Dead Sea. And so Nazareth is just a little point on this map. So anyway, they brought Jesus, and I still think this is Jesus Barabbas, first to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas. Caiaphas was one of the people who advised the Jewish leaders that it would be good if one man died for the people. During the time that Jesus was being tried, I think Jesus Barabbas was being tried before Annas. Simon Peter and another disciple were following Jesus. The other disciple was known to the high priest, so he went with Jesus into the high priest's courtyard. That would have been uh, Caiaphas, right? Okay, so here's what I'm doing. I'm putting Annas and Caiaphas, Barabbas and BethLeham, which might be the same person, Jesus, and then we have Simon Peter and another disciple, all involved in this. And I've kind of put out a little map. There's a house, a courtyard. I would guess there probably is a fire inside the courtyard as well as outside because it's a cold night. And this is the configuration that I'm imagining first. I'm going to put Simon Peter, Annas, and Barabbas on the outside of the gate, while another disciple, Caiaphas, and Jesus of Bethlehem are on the inside of the gate. Or it might be like this, or something like that. Let's see how this works. Simon Peter and another disciple were following Jesus. Because this disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the high priest's courtyard. So definitely the other disciple is with at least one of the Jesuses, and Caiaphas is the high priest. So this disciple is known to the high priest. So he goes with Jesus into the courtyard. But Peter had to wait outside at the door. The other disciple, who was known to the high priest, came back, spoke to the servant girl on duty there, and brought Peter in. "You aren't one of this man's disciples too, are you?" she asked Peter. He replied, "I am not." It was cold, and the servants and officials stood around a fire they had made to keep warm. Peter was standing with them, warming himself. Okay, so here's essentially what happened. Annas and the servants and officials came in, and another disciple. Everybody came in this far. Then, actually, yeah, Caiaphas was probably already inside there. He didn't come out. Um, Maybe Annas wasn't there. Annas was outside waiting. Okay, here we go. Another disciple. So all of these. Then BethLeham and Barabbas are sent in to the actual house of Caiaphas. And then the other disciple, seeing Simon Peter isn't there, he walks out and says, "Hey, let him in." And so she says, "You're not a disciple of this guy too, are you?" And I don't know whether she's talking about Barabbas or Bethlehem, but either way, he says no. He says, "No, I'm definitely not um, a disciple of like Barabbas." Okay, and so now we are in the almost exactly the situation of Leviticus 16. The high priest is in here with the two goats, and inside the high priest is questioning them. The high priest, Caiaphas, questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. And Jesus said, "I have spoken openly to the world." And this probably would have been BethLeham answering Caiaphas at this point. BethLeham is saying, I have taught in synagogues or at the temple where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said. And for that, you should go read like Matthew, Mark, or Luke, maybe. When Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby slapped him in the face. Okay, so that adds another person to the house. We've got this slap-happy official that's smacking people in the face. Is this the way you answer the high priest?" he demanded. And Jesus says, "If I said something wrong, testify as to what is wrong. But if I spoke the truth, why did you strike me?" Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. Whoa, wait. Oops. That changes things. High priest wasn't there. Annas is out here. Okay, so sorry about that. Things are getting confused. I'll have to redo this once I get this worked out. But we got the slap happy official and servants and officials, and we're out here by the fire outside with BethLeham. Okay, I think what's going on here is John is playing yet another mind game, a word game with us. First of all, he says, "Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching." Um, then Jesus replied a bunch of things. Um, okay, if I spoke the truth, why did you strike me? Okay, Here's the question. If I spoke the truth, why did you strike me? Uh, testify as to what is wrong. Let us do that. Let's testify as to what is wrong. What is wrong here is Annas sent him to Caiaphas the high priest. The high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. And this is not how Jesus, here's the problem. This is not how Jesus answered the high priest. Why? Because of this. Jesus wasn't out here by the fire with the slap happy official, the other disciple, Simon Peter, the servant girl, and the servants and official, and Annas. Jesus was in here with the high priest. So he wasn't here to give that answer. He wasn't here to give that answer to say, I have done nothing. He wasn't out by the fire to say, I have spoken openly to the world. I have taught in synagogues or at the temple where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard. Surely they know what I said. And then when Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby slapped him in the face and said, Is this the way you answer the high priest? And the answer is no. This is not the way he answered Caiaphas. But Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. Simon Peter, out here by the fire, denies that he knows the man twice more. But it's not clear whether they're talking about this one or whether he's talking about this one. So there's also no point in this where Peter realizes, oh my God, I've just denied Jesus 3 times. Rather, he just denies it 3 times, and he doesn't describe any regrets about it at all. It just says Peter denied it, and at that moment a rooster began to crow. Okay, this might not be perfect yet. I think I even had a more complicated version of this where maybe Barabbas comes in first, tried before Caiaphas and sent directly to Pilate, even as BethLeham is coming in, and then Barabbas is being tried before Pilate at the same time that BethLeham is tried before the high priest. We'll try to work this out some more in the next video.